The empty frames of the Gardner Museum, a mansion's unsolved mystery. Midnight, March 18th, 1990. St. Patrick's Day. Revelry fades in Boston streets as two men in police uniforms approach the side door of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. The grand Venetian-style palazzo, cloaked in darkness, stands silent in the Fenway neighbourhood, a testament to one woman's audacious vision. Inside, priceless masterpieces hang in opulent rooms: Rembrandt's stormy seascape, Vermeer's intimate concert, Titian's ravishing Europa. The museum, spanning 15,200 square feet with over 20 galleries arranged around a lush central courtyard, was built at the turn of the century for an estimated $1.5 million, equivalent to about $50 million today. Its founder, Isabella Stewart Gardner, had poured her inherited fortune into this architectural jewel, blending Gothic arches, Renaissance balconies, and Roman mosaics into a living canvas of art and horticulture. But on this fateful night, appearance shatters reality. The impostors bind the guards, roam unchecked for 81 minutes, and slice treasures from their frames. 13 works valued at $500 million, the largest art theft in history. Alarms silent, tapes erased, they vanish into the dawn, leaving gashes in the walls and echoes of absence. Today, those empty frames still hang as Gardner decreed nothing should change, a haunting reminder of fragility amid splendour. What drove a Gilded Age icon to create this sanctuary? How did immigrant hands shape its stones amid grueling toil? And why, after 35 years, does the mystery persist, with a $10 million reward unclaimed? This documentary uncovers the layers, from visionary ambition to hidden labours, from gilded peaks to catastrophic loss, revealing how one mansion embodies America's contradictions of wealth, art, and unresolved shadows. Will the empty frames ever whisper their secrets? Chapter 1. The night the masterpieces vanished. It is 12:37 a.m. on March 18, 1990. Boston's Fenway neighbourhood sleeps under a thin March frost. St. Patrick's Day carousers have staggered home. Only the sodium street lamps glow orange on the sidewalk outside 25 Palace Road. Two men in dark police coats climb the short flight of granite steps to the museum's Dutchman's door. Their uniforms are cheap, the badges plastic, the knock too confident. A lone security guard, 23-year-old Rick Abath, peers through the peephole. He buzzes them in. The heavy door seals shut with a hydraulic sigh. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of damp stone and centuries-old oil paint. The intruders move with practiced calm. They bind Abath and his partner with duct tape in the basement, wrists behind backs, ankles lashed to pipes. No words of panic. No struggle. 81 minutes begin to tick. Upstairs, the palazzo's 4 stories rise around a glass-roofed courtyard where palms and orchids drink moonlight. The building, 15,200 square feet of pale brick and Indiana limestone, was completed in 1903 at Mogaoam at a cost of $1.5 million, roughly $50 million in 2025 dollars. Its 21 principal galleries cradle 2,500 objects: ancient sarcophagi, Byzantine reliquaries, a bronze Buddha from 1780. But tonight the intruders ignore the gold and the marble. They head for the paintings. Footsteps echo on the terrazzo. In the Dutch room on the second floor, Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape, 63 by 50 inches of churning green, hangs above a mahogany cabinet. The taller thief produces a blade. Canvas tears, wood splinters. The frame drops empty. Across the room, Vermeer's The Concert, a delicate 28 by 25 inch panel of musical intimacy, comes down next. 5 works in this room alone. Down the corridor, in the short gallery, Manet's charcoal portrait of himself vanishes. On the first floor, a Chinese bronze Gu beaker from 1200 BCE is pried from its mount. A finial from a Napoleonic flagstaff is pocketed. The men work fast, almost surgical. They leave behind what they cannot carry: a Titian too large, a Raphael too fragile. At 1:24 a.m. they exit the same side door, load a red Dodge hatchback, and melt into the pre-dawn. Dawn reveals the carnage. 13 frames gape like open wounds. The largest theft in art history, valued then at $200 million, now conservatively $600 million, has occurred in a building designed to be eternal. Isabella Stewart Gardner's will, filed in 1924, was explicit. Nothing in the galleries may be added, removed, or rearranged. So the voids remain. Empty gilt rectangles stare at visitors. Velvet walls bear pale rectangles where sunlight never reached. The FBI arrives within hours. Yellow tape crisscrosses the courtyard. The reward climbs. $1 million, then $5 million, now $10 million. No arrests, no recoveries. 35 years of silence. Step back 90 years earlier. The same courtyard, then newly planted with nasturtiums and ferns, shimmered under gaslight. Isabella Stewart Gardner, known to Boston society simply as Mrs. Jack, stood on the balcony in a black velvet gown, pearls coiled like rope around her neck. She had spent 4 years and her late husband's fortune to raise this palace from a swampy Back Bay fen. The structure's steel skeleton, innovative for 1899, was sheathed in brick from Ohio and stone quarried in Bedford, Indiana. Venetian gondola posts flanked the entrance canal. The fourth-floor Gothic room housed her personal library of 6,000 volumes. Every detail, down to the 100-200 square feet of hand-laid mosaic in the courtyard floor, was chosen by a woman who once scandalised Newport by walking a lion on a leash. Yet tonight, in 1990, the lion is gone. The palace is a crime scene. The paradox crystallises. A mansion built to defy time, now frozen by loss. How did a Gilded Age widow channel railroad millions into this audacious sanctuary? Who were the Irish masons and Italian stonecarvers who lifted every block while earning $1.75 a day? What hidden machinery? Boilers, dumbwaiters, a staff of 40, kept the illusion of effortless grandeur alive? And why, after decades of leads from Dublin to Tokyo, do the empty frames still accuse? This documentary will follow the threads. Chapter by chapter, we trace Isabella's ascent from Manhattan merchant's daughter to Boston's cultural empress. We descend into the construction trenches where immigrant labourers toiled amid typhoid outbreaks. We enter the hidden service corridors where maids polish silver until their knuckles bled. We witness the museum's golden decade of concerts and orchid shows, then the slow erosion of fortune after Mrs. Jack's death in 1924. We stand in the Dutch room today, where schoolchildren whisper about the missing Rembrandt, and curators speak of ghost rectangles. Finally, we confront the unresolved, the FBI files, the underworld rumours, the $10 million bounty that no one has claimed. The theft was not the mansion's first crisis, nor its last. Fires threatened in 1915. Dry rot gnawed the beams in the 1950s. A 1960s plan to sell the collection was quashed by public outcry, yet the 1990 breach cut deepest, exposing the fragility of even the most fortified dream. Isabella Gardner wanted her palace to live forever. Instead, it became a monument to absence. Tonight, the courtyard fountain still trickles. The palms still sway. Visitors, 225,000 annually, pass beneath the empty frames and feel the chill of what is missing. Somewhere, perhaps in a warehouse or a private vault, 13 masterpieces breathe in darkness. The question lingers, sharp as the blade that freed them. Who stole the heart of Fenway Court, and why has justice remained as silent as the empty walls? In the next chapter, we return to 1850s New York, to a textile heiress who would trade propriety for immortality and begin raising a palace that would one day echo with the sound of canvas ripping in the night. Chapter 2. The heiress who dared the empty frames of 1990 did not appear from thin air. Their story begins in a soot-blackened Manhattan townhouse on University Place, 1840. A newborn cries beneath a crystal chandelier. Isabella Stewart is swaddled in Irish linen, heir to a textile fortune built on the backs of Lowell mill girls. Her father, David Stewart, has turned flax into gold, $2 million in 1850 dollars, roughly $80 million today. The infant will never know want, but she will know exile from convention. Cut to 1860. Boston's Back Bay is still a tidal swamp, where gulls wheel over mudflats. Isabella, now 20, marries John Lowell Gardner Jr. Jack to the Brahmins, scion of a shipping empire that once hauled opium from Smyrna and cotton from Charleston. Jack's wealth is older, colder, $1.8 million in railroad bonds, and East India Company stock. The couple settles at 152 Beacon Street, a brownstone fortress where calling cards are counted like currency. Isabella chafes. She wears Paris gowns cut 2 inches shorter than decency allows. She smokes Turkish cigarettes in public. Society whispers fast. She answers by sailing to Europe, first class naturally, on the Cunard steamer China in 1867. Europe cracks her open. In Rome, she climbs the Spanish steps at dawn with a sketchbook. In Paris, she buys her first Old Master, a small Madonna attributed to Botticelli, for 4,000 francs. In Venice, she rents a palazzo on the Grand Canal and learns to row a gondola in silk slippers. Letters home brim with plans. I must have a house that breathes art the way lungs breathe air. Jack indulges her. Their only child, a son born in 1863, dies of pneumonia at 18 months. Grief carves a hollow. Isabella fills with marble and pigment. By 1885, the Back Bay has been filled with gravel hauled by Irish navvies at $1.25 a day. The Gardners purchase 4 acres of reclaimed fen at the corner of Palace Road and the Fenway for $312,000. Land once underwater, now the most expensive dirt in Boston. Isabella sketches her dream on vellum, a Venetian palace wrapped around a Roman atrium, 4 stories high, 110 feet long, 90 feet wide. No architect is invited. She will design it herself, assisted by Willard Sears, a society builder who specialises in churches. The cost estimate, $800,000 for the shell alone. Jack signs without blinking. Why here? Location is declaration. The Fenway is raw, democratic, far from Beacon Hill's mahogany parlours. Across the street, Frederick Law Olmsted is laying out the emerald necklace of parks. Isabella wants her palace to be the jewel in that necklace, visible from the muddy river, a beacon to the city's future. She also wants privacy. A 15-foot brick wall will seal the compound from gawkers. The contradiction is deliberate. She craves attention, yet demands control. Economic context sharpens the ambition. The Gilded Age is at its zenith. Andrew Carnegie is erecting a castle on 91st Street. The Vanderbilts have just opened the Breakers. Boston's merchant princes, Appletons, Cabots, Lowells, compete in marble. Isabella, an outsider by birth and temperament, must outdo them all. Her weapon is taste, not mere square footage. She will not build the largest house, she will build the most alive. Socially, the moment is electric. Women of means are expected to chair charity balls, not collect Rembrandts. Isabella defies the script. In 1891, she shocks the Somerset Club by appearing at a symphony concert in a headband spelling, "Oh, you Red Sox," a dare to stuffy Boston. The press dubs her Isabella of the Gorgeous. She keeps the clipping in a gold frame. Personal contradictions abound. She mourns her son yet throws parties where champagne flows until 4 a.m. She champions artists. John Singer. Sargent paints her portrait in 1888, yet pays Italian stonecarvers $2.10 a day while spending $40,000 on a single tapestry. She corresponds with Henry James and Bernard Berenson, debating aesthetics in French, then haggles with Venetian antique dealers like a fishwife. The palace will embody these tensions: public stage and private shrine, generosity and obsession. Construction is approved in 1898. Jack dies suddenly of a stroke in December, aged 59. His estate, $3.3 million, all to Isabella. She is 58, widowed, childless, and now the richest woman in Boston. Grief becomes fuel. On January 3rd, 1899, she breaks ground herself, driving a silver trowel into the mud. The gesture is theatrical, but the stakes are real. She has 4 years to finish before her 60th birthday. The swamp will become Fenway Court, or swallow her fortune. Next, we descend into the earth itself, the trenches where Irish and Italian labourers wrestle steel beams into mud, where typhoid festers in standing water, where Isabella's dream rises on blistered hands and broken backs. Chapter 3. Forged in Mud and Iron. January 3rd, 1899. A raw wind whips across the Back Bay fen. Isabella Stewart Gardner, veiled in black mink, sinks a silver trowel into the thawed muck at the corner of Palace Road. Cameras flash. Reporters scribble. Beneath her boots, the ground is still 60% water. 40 years earlier, this was a tidal marsh where eels wriggled and mosquitoes bred. Now 1.2 million cubic yards of gravel, hauled by Irish labourers at $1.50 a day, have raised the grade 8 feet. The trowel strikes a buried clamshell. Isabella smiles. The palace has begun. Willard T. Sears, her architect, stands nearby in a bowler hat. He is no McKim, Mead and White. His portfolio is churches and banks, not palazzos. Isabella chose him because he listens. The design is hers, a hollow rectangle, 110 feet by 90 feet, 4 stories tall, wrapped around a 60 by 30-foot courtyard. The facade will be pale Roman brick from Philadelphia, 500,000 pieces fired at $28 per thousand. The trim, Indiana limestone, 1,200 tons quarried in Bedford and shipped by rail at 90 cents per cubic foot. Total shell cost, $1.1 million before furnishings. Adjusted for 2025, $42 million. The first challenge is the swamp. Engineers drive 3,000 spruce piles, each 25 feet long, sharpened by Italian immigrants, earning $1.75 for a 10-hour day, into the blue clay. The piles are capped with granite slabs to form a raft. On this floating island, the steel skeleton will rise. The frame is revolutionary. 1 to 800 tons of Bethlehem steel beams, riveted on site by a crew of 40 boilermakers from Pittsburgh. The tallest beam, 42 feet, weighs 4.2 tons. Hoisting it requires a wooden derrick powered by a steam donkey engine that belches coal smoke across the Fenway. Material sourcing is global. Brick arrives in boxcars labelled Philadelphia and Reading. Limestone blocks, each 6 feet long, are numbered in chalk and lowered by block and tackle. Venetian mosaic tesserae, 1.2 million pieces of coloured glass and marble, are crated in Murano and shipped via Liverpool. The courtyard's 4-storey glass roof, 2,100 square feet of wired plate glass, is fabricated in Belgium and arrives in 112 crates. Customs duties alone, $18,000. Labour is the hidden engine. Peak workforce, 320 men. Irish masons, many fresh from County Cork, lay brick at 400 pieces per day for $2.25. Italian stone carvers, recruited in Genoa, earn $2.10 to chisel Gothic tracery. Polish labourers shovel gravel at $1.40 Darsaln. Hours 6 a.m. to 5 p.m, 6 days a week. Accidents are routine. In June 1899, a hoist cable snaps. A 600-pound limestone block crushes the foot of Patrick O'Rourke, 34, from Kerry. Compensation, $25 and a train ticket home. Typhoid festers in the workers' camp on Huntington Avenue. 3 die in August. Isabella visits the site weekly in a carriage, distributing cigars but never raising wages. Technical innovations abound. The steel frame allows spans of 30 feet without columns, unheard of in residential Boston. A central heating plant with 200 horsepower boilers feeds 14 miles of steam pipe. Electric lighting, 1,200 incandescent bulbs wired by Thomas Edison's men, replaces gas jets. A hydraulic elevator, the first in a private Boston home, rises from basement to 4th floor. The courtyard roof is supported by steel trusses disguised as Renaissance beams. Rainwater drains through hidden copper gutters into a 10,000-gallon cistern beneath the mosaic floor. Delays pile up. Winter 1899-1900 is brutal. Temperatures drop to 12 Degas. Steel contracts, rivets pop. The glass roof arrives cracked. Replacement takes 4 months. Isabella, impatient, cables Venice for faster mosaic shipment. Costs balloon. By December 1900, the budget is $1.4 million and climbing. Jack's estate trustees grumble. Isabella sells $200,000 in railroad bonds to cover overruns. The human toll is etched in the ledgers. Payroll for 1900, $112,000. Isabella's art purchases that year, $340,000, including Titian's Europa for $100,000. A mason's annual wage, $580, buys 1 square foot of Venetian mosaic. The disparity is stark, yet the workers take pride. Domenico Bruciani, a 28-year-old carver from Lucca, signs his name inside a capital destined for the courtyard colonnade. It is still there, hidden behind a palm. By spring 1901, the shell stands. The courtyard floor, 1,200 square feet of pink and white marble, laid in a sunburst pattern, is complete. The glass roof is sealed. Isabella climbs the scaffold to the 4th floor and looks down. The swamp is gone. In its place, a Roman atrium open to the sky, ringed by balconies where concerts will echo. She is 61. The palace is her second child, but the building is only half the story. Next, we enter the hidden corridors where a staff of 40 will keep the illusion alive, where boilers roar, silver is polished by candlelight, and the cost of beauty is measured in blistered hands and sleepless nights. Chapter 4. The Machine Behind the Masterpiece, March 1st, 1903. The last scaffold plank is lowered from the Fenway Court roof. Isabella Stewart Gardner, now 62, stands in the courtyard at dusk. The glass ceiling glows violet. A string quartet rehearses Debussy in the Spanish cloister. The palace is alive. Beneath the music, another orchestra hums, boilers, bells, and the soft pad of 40 servants moving through hidden arteries. The visible splendour, Rembrandts, orchids, silk damask, rests on an invisible machine of labour and coal. First occupancy begins that night. Isabella has not built a house, she has built a stage. The 1,500 square foot rectangle contains 21 principal galleries, 4 private apartments, 3 kitchens, 2 laundries, 1 chapel, and 1 greenhouse. Annual operating cost, $85,000 in 1903 dollars, $3.2 million today. Staff hierarchy is rigid. At the apex, Morris Carter, curator secretary, $3,000 per year. At the base, scullery maids, $180. The gap is 17-fold. The day begins at 5:30 a.m. in the basement boiler room. 2 firemen, Thomas Kelly and Patrick Shea, both Irish, $2.10 daily, shovel 200 pounds of anthracite into twin 150 horsepower furnaces. Steam hisses through 14 miles of pipe, warming 1,800 radiators disguised as Renaissance grills. By 6:15, hot water reaches the 4th floor copper bathtub, where Isabella soaks amid Ming porcelain. A dumbwaiter the size of a coffin rises from the sub-basement pantry, delivering coffee and brioche on Sèvres china. The kitchen brigade assembles at 6:30. Head chef Auguste Bouvier, poached from the Ritz in Paris for $2,400 a year, commands 6 cooks and 4 kitchen maids. Breakfast for 20 guests. Oeufs en cocotte, sole diepoise, peaches in chartreuse. Ingredients arrive by horse cart. 200 oysters daily from Wellfleet. 40 pounds of beef from Brighton stockyards. Orchids flown in crates from Brazil. The ice house holds 120 tons of Wenham Lake ice, cut in January and packed in sawdust. Cost per ton, $4 and $100. Above stairs, the illusion is seamless. Footmen in green livery glide on rubber-soled shoes. Housemaids, 16 Irish girls aged 18 to 25, $16 monthly plus room, polish 200 square feet of parquet, with beeswax, until it mirrors the chandeliers. Silver service for 120 requires 3,600 pieces. Each fork is rubbed for 7 minutes with rouge cloth. The laundry processes 1,800 items, weekly in copper boilers, heated to 180 degrees by hours. Starch is mixed by hand. Collars are ironed with 12-pound sad irons. No electric washers yet. Those come in 1912. Hidden infrastructure threads the palace like veins. A warren of service corridors, narrow, unadorned, lit by single bulbs, connects every room. Maids enter galleries through doors camouflaged as panelling. A pneumatic tube system shoots messages from Isabella's desk to the curator's office in cork capsules. The telephone switchboard, installed 1904, handles 200 calls monthly. The greenhouse, 1,200 square feet under glass, produces 500 orchids yearly. Head gardener Okakura Kakuzo earns $1,800 and sleeps in a cot among the Vanda. Social life peaks on concert nights. The music room, 45 by 30 feet, with a 25-foot ceiling, holds 250 folding chairs. Paderewski plays Chopin in 1904. The fee is $2,000 plus a case of 1896 Pole Roger. Guests arrive in electric broughams. Valets park 42 vehicles along Palace Road. Champagne flows at 60 bottles per event. The courtyard fountain is lit with coloured gels. Nasturtiums float in the basin. Isabella, in a Fortuny gown, greets each arrival with a handshake and a whispered provenance of the nearest painting. The machine never sleeps. Night watchmen patrol hourly, punching 28 time clocks. The greenhouse furnace is stoked at 2 a.m. to protect orchids from frost. Isabella rises at 4 a.m. some nights to rearrange frames by candlelight. In 1906, she hosts a costume ball themed Venetian Night. 400 guests dance until 5 a.m. while 38 staff remain on duty. The cleanup requires 14 hours and 200 buckets of water. Hidden costs accumulate. Coal bill, 1905, $4,200. Linen replacement, $1,800. Orchid fertilizer imported from Ceylon, $620. Staff turnover is high. 3 maids leave in 1907 after 14-hour shifts during Holy Week. Isabella raises wages 10 cents but refuses unions. The palace is her world. Its workers are cogs. By 1910, the rhythm is perfected. The courtyard blooms year-round. Concerts occur monthly. Art shipments arrive crated in lead-lined boxes. The machine runs so smoothly that visitors see only beauty. They do not smell the coal dust in the basement or hear the clang of sad irons at midnight. But perfection is fragile. Isabella is 70. The fortune, once $3.3 million, has dwindled to $1.8 million after art purchases and overruns. The machine requires constant oil. In the next chapter, we follow the human fuel, maids who polished until their fingers bled, gardeners who slept among the orchids, and the moral contradictions of a palace built on gilded age, excess. Chapter 5. The Hands That Fed the Dream. The music room chandelier glitters at 11 p.m. on a February night in 1905. Below, 240 guests sip champagne, while Ignacy Paderewski's fingers fly across the Steinway. Upstairs in the narrow service corridor behind the tapestry room, 20-year-old Bridget O'Donnell kneels on cold pine boards. Her knees ache. Her knuckles are raw from rouge cloth. She has polished 312 pieces of Georgian silver since 6 a.m. Her wage, 48 cents a day. Isabella Gardner, in emerald silk, will never see Bridget's face. The machine demands invisibility. Staff records, preserved in the museum archives, list 42 full-time employees in 1906. 40 lived on site. Hierarchy was etched in stone. Curator Morris Carter earned $3,000 annually and dined with Isabella. Head butler James Flynn, $1,200, supervised footmen. Housemaids, 16 women, all Irish, all single, received $192 plus board. Kitchen maids earned $168. The lowest, the scullery girl, Annie Sullivan, age 16, took home $144 for scrubbing 180 pots daily in water hot enough to blister. Annual coal bill, $4,200. Annual maid wages combined, $4,013. The math is merciless. Working conditions were brutal by Menti Mobisico. Design. Housemaids rose at 5:15 a.m. Bells rang in the third-floor dormitory. 12 iron cots, 1 washstand, no heat after October. Uniforms, black dress, white apron, cap starched to cardboard. Breakfast at 5:45, porridge, bread, tea. By 6 they were on their knees in the Dutch room, dusting Rembrandt's frames with silk cloths. The air smelled of linseed oil and lye soap. No talking. Matron Miss McLaughlin patrolled with a ruler, measuring dust on mantles. A fingerprint meant an hour's pay docked. In the kitchen, heat was the enemy. The main range, 8 burners, 2 ovens, radiated 400-degree hours. Cooks wore wool even in July. Burns were common. In 1908, sous chef Marie Leclerc slipped on beef fat. Her forearm hit the griddle. Blisters the size of $50. Treatment, butter and a bandage. No sick days. Head chef Bouvier docked her $150. The icehouse offered brief relief. Kitchen boys hid there to cool scalded hands, risking dismissal. Gardeners worked in silence. Okakura Kakuzo, hired in 1904 for $1,800, oversaw 6 men who tended 100 square feet of greenhouse. They mixed orchid soil, sphagnum moss, charcoal, sheep manure, by hand. Temperatures reached 95 degrees under glass. Fungus killed 120 cattleyas in 1907. Isabella blamed the Irish undergardener, Michael Doyle. He was fired with 1 week's pay, $10.50. Doyle's replacement, a Japanese student named Hiroshi Tanaka, earned $9 weekly but slept in the potting shed to save train fare. Economic impact rippled outward. The palace consumed 1,800 loaves of bread yearly from Faneuil Hall bakeries, 2,400 pounds of butter from Vermont creameries, 600 crates of oranges from Florida. Local laundries washed 1,800 tablecloths monthly at 3 cents each, yet wages stayed low. A footman's $720 yearly salary bought 720 loaves of bread. or 1/10 of Isabella's 1905 purchase of a Veronese sketch, the community felt the weight. Roxbury seamstresses stitched 48 ball gowns annually for $2 each. Isabella paid Paris couturiers $800 per dress. Moral contradictions sharpened with every orchid bloom. Isabella championed women's education, donating $10,000 to Radcliffe in 1903. Yet her maids were forbidden books after 9 p.m. She corresponded with Jane Addams on tenement reform, then refused her laundresses a half-day off on Sundays. She hosted a 1906 benefit for Italian earthquake victims, raising $12,000, while paying her Italian mosaic restorers $2.15 daily, less than Boston factory girls earned. Personal stories surface in letters. Bridget O'Donnell wrote her sister in Cork, "The paintings are grand, but the stairs never end. My legs are blue with bruises." In 1909, footman Thomas Reardon proposed to housemaid Nora Kelly in the service pantry. Both were dismissed for fraternising. Nora's diary, later donated by descendants, records, "Mrs. Jack says love is a distraction. The silver must shine brighter than our hearts. Health toll was constant. Laundry steam carried tuberculosis. 2 maids died in 1911. The basement was damp. Rheumatism crippled head laundress Margaret Flynn by age 42. Isabella sent flowers but no pension. When gardener Patrick Murphy lost 3 fingers to the lawnmower in 1912, he received $50 and a train ticket to Quebec. The accident report notes, "Employee careless." Yet loyalty persisted. Maurice Carter stayed 40 years. Okakura Kakuzo died in the greenhouse in 1913, surrounded by orchids he had coaxed from seed. Bridget O'Donnell rose to head housemaid by 1918, earning $400 annually, still less than 1 Titian frame. She told her niece, "The palace took my youth, but it gave me stories no convent could." By 1914, cracks appeared. Isabella, 74, suffered a stroke. The machine slowed. Staff dropped to 35. Coal shortages during World War I forced firemen to burn scrap wood. Radiators clanked. The golden era dimmed. In the next chapter, we witness the turning point. Isabella's final illness, the iron will that locked the collection in amber, and the crisis that nearly sold the dream to the highest bidder. Chapter 6. The Will That Froze. Time, July 17th, 1924. The courtyard fountain gurgles at half strength. Isabella Stewart Gardner, 84, lies in the 4th-floor Chinese room on a daybed draped in gold damask. Her left side is paralysed from a second stroke. A single orchid, Catalia Mrs. Jack Gardner, rests on the bedside table. Outside, the Fenway hums with Model T Fords. Inside, time has stopped. For 6 days she has refused food. Only champagne, sipped through a straw, sustains her. At 11:47 p.m, her breathing ceases. The palace exhales. Death is the first crisis, but not the last. The fortune, once $3.3 million, now stands at $1.1 million after 30 years of acquisitions. Debts total $240,000. The collection, 2,500 objects, including 36 old masters, has no clear successor. Jack's will left everything to Isabella. Hers is a 42-page document drafted in 1919 and revised obsessively. The core clause is iron. Fenway Court must become a public museum for the education and enjoyment of the public forever. Nothing may be sold, added or rearranged. Violate the terms and the entire estate, building, art, endowment, passes to Harvard University. The trustees blanch. Harvard would liquidate. Financial collapse looms. Annual operating costs, $85,000 in 1914, have risen to $112,000 by 1924, with inflation and repairs. The endowment yields only $42,000. The roof leaks in 38 places. The glass courtyard alone needs $18,000 in new panes. Staff is down to 28. Wages are frozen. Curator Maurice Carter calculates, without new funds, bankruptcy in 5 years. The board meets in emergency session on July 20th. Option 1. Sell the Titian Europa for $300,000. Option 2. Open to the public immediately and charge admission. Both violate the will. A third path emerges. Beg. They appeal to Boston's elite. Subscription drives raise $180,000 in pledges. $25,000 from the Sears family. $50,000. From the Cabots. The museum opens quietly on February 1st, 1925. Admission, 50 cents. First-year attendance, 48,000. Revenue, $24,000. Still short. The board cuts staff to 22, closes the greenhouse in winter, and sells the orchid collection for $12,000. Isabella's ghost, some say, rattles the frames. Physical decay accelerates. The 1903 steel frame, never painted, rusts at the joints. Water seeps through the brick, staining the Dutch room ceiling. In 1927, a storm shatters 40 new panes of the courtyard roof. Shards rain on the mosaic floor. Repair cost $22,000. The endowment cannot cover it. The board petitions the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court for permission to sell one minor painting, a 17th-century Dutch landscape valued at $8,000. Denied. The will is law. Personal catastrophe compounds the crisis. Morris Carter, now director, suffers a heart attack in 1928. His deputy, George Stout, takes over at $4,800 annually, half Isabella's former curator salary. Stout discovers dry rot in the third-floor beams. Replacement requires $38,000. He sells his own car to fund emergency shoring. Staff morale collapses. Head laundress Margaret Flynn, crippled by rheumatism, is let go with a $200 pension. She dies in 1930 in a Roxbury tenement. Attempted solutions falter. In 1931, the board proposes a Friends of Fenway Court membership at $100 per year. Only 42 sign up. A 1933 benefit concert with the Boston Symphony nets $6,200 after expenses. The Depression slashes endowment income to $18,000. By 1935, the museum is $62,000 in debt. The ultimate temptation surfaces: sell the entire collection to the Metropolitan Museum for $4 million. The Met offers to relocate Fenway Court brick by brick to Central Park. The board votes 4-3 in favour. Public outcry erupts. The Boston Globe headlines: Mrs. Jack's Palace to be dismantled. Petitions flood the court. On June 12, 1936, the judge rules the will is inviolable. The sale dies. Consequences cascade. The museum limps into the 1940s on $1 admission and $22,000 yearly gifts. Wartime blackouts hide the leaking roof. In 1944, a fire in the boiler room, sparked by a faulty coal stoker, scorches the basement. Damage: $14,000. The insurance company refuses payout, citing deferred maintenance. The board finally dips into principal, draining $28,000. The endowment shrinks to $680,000. Yet the will's rigidity saves the soul. Because nothing can be sold, the collection remains intact. Because nothing can be rearranged, the empty spaces where Isabella once hung minor works become part of the narrative. The palace is no longer a private stage, it is a time capsule. Visitors in 1948 were 112,000 annually. Walk the same paths Paderewski trod, see the same velvet walls, smell the same hothouse orchids replanted by volunteers. By 1950, the crisis ebbs. Post-war prosperity swells admissions to 160,000. A $1.2 million endowment campaign in 1952, led by Paul Sachs of Harvard, restores the roof, repoints the ID brick and installs fire suppression. The museum survives, scarred but breathing. The turning point is complete. Isabella's death froze the palace in amber, but the struggle to honour her will transformed it from private whim to public trust. In the next chapter, we trace the adaptation. New ownership by generations of trustees, preservation battles against flood and fire, and the museum's rebirth as a living institution. Until the night in 1990, when the amber cracked. Chapter 7. From Private Palace to Public Trust, February 3, 1953. A ribbon of red tape stretches across the Palace Road entrance. Boston's Mayor John Hines snips it with silver shears. Flashbulbs pop. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum reopens after a $1.2 million restoration, the first major capital campaign in its history. The leaking courtyard roof is sealed with 2,100 new panes of Belgian glass. The rusting steel frame is sandblasted and coated with zinc primer. The endowment, swollen to $1.9 million, yields $76,000 annually. The palace has survived its near-death experience. Now it must learn to live. Ownership is no longer personal. Isabella's will, created a self-perpetuating board of trustees, 7 members, elected for life. No family heirs. By 1953, the board includes Paul Sachs of Harvard, a banker from State Street, and a Cabot widow. They hire George Stout as director at $6,000 a year. Stout, fresh from saving artworks in wartime Europe, installs climate controls. 68 degrees, 50% humidity, monitored by a Honeywell dial the size of a dinner plate. The boilers are converted to oil. Coal dust no longer blackens the Dutch room. Preservation becomes ritual. Every Monday when the museum is closed, conservators in white coats vacuum the tapestries with screened nozzles at 20 inches of mercury. The mosaic courtyard floor, 1,200 square feet of Carrara and Rosso Antico, is scrubbed with cotton swabs dipped in distilled water. The 1903 Otis elevator is rebuilt with bronze cables. It still creaks but no longer groans. Annual maintenance budget, $48,000. Visitor revenue, $112,000 from 178,000 tickets at 75 cents each. Modern challenges arrive uninvited. In 1969, Hurricane Gerda dumps 14 inches of rain on Boston. The Fenway floods to waist height. Water laps the basement boilers. A National Guard truck evacuates the bronze Buddha. Pumps run for 72 hours. Damage totals $180,000. The board raises insurance to $25 million, still a fraction of the collection's $400 million appraisal. In 1972, dry rot is discovered in the 4th floor Gothic room beams. Replacement oak, air-dried for 18 months, costs $62,000. The board sells a minor Corot sketch through a loophole. It was never hung, netting $38,000. The will's spirit bends but does not break. Current operations evolve. By 1975, staff numbers 58. 14 guards, 12 conservators, 8 educators, 6 gardeners. Guards earn $4.25 an hour. Unionised after a 1973 strike that closed the museum for 11 days. The greenhouse is rebuilt with, by day, aluminum frames. 400 orchids bloom again. A concert series resumes in the tapestry room. 150 seats, $5 tickets. Yo-Yo Ma plays Bach in 1981. The courtyard fountain is silenced so the cello can breathe. Tourism surges. Annual visitation climbs to 220,000 by 1985. School buses idle on Palace Road. The gift shop, added in a former carriage house, sells 42,000 postcards yearly. A cafe opens in the old monk's refectory. Cappuccino and lemon squares under Gothic arches. Revenue, $240,000. The board experiments with evening hours on Thursdays. 200 visitors stream in under coloured lights. The palace, once a nocturnal stage for Isabella's friends, now glows for strangers. Commercial use is cautious. Corporate rentals are banned. A 1987 fashion shoot for Vogue is allowed only in the courtyard. No heels on the mosaic. The museum licenses its image to PBS for a documentary. $50,000 fee. Every dollar is ploughed back into preservation. The endowment reaches $12 million by 1989, yielding $600,000 annually. The machine hums, yet cracks remain. The 1903 electrical system, rewired in 1953, sparks during a 1988 thunderstorm. A transformer explodes. The Dutch room goes dark for 6 hours. Replacement cost, $92,000. The board debates a new wing for storage and classrooms. Architect I.M. Pei sketches a glass pavilion. Cost, $18 million. The will forbids additions. The plan dies. The palace adapts in subtler ways. In 1976, a rape occurs in the short gallery after closing. Security is overhauled. 28 infrared beams, 14 motion sensors, 2 guards per shift. The night watchman's time clocks are replaced with electronic keycards. Annual security budget, $180,000. The courtyard fountain is fitted with a recirculating pump. No more city water waste. Solar panels are considered in 1985 but rejected, too visible from the Fenway. By 1989, the museum is stable, beloved and fragile. Visitation, $225,000. Endowment, $15 million, staff 62. The empty spaces where Isabella once rotated minor works are now labelled reserved for future acquisition. The will is honoured, the palace breathes. But on March 18, 1990, the amber shatters. 2 thieves in fake police uniforms breach the side door. The security system, state of the art in 1985, fails to alert police. The guards are bound. 13 masterpieces vanish. The crisis of 1920 all pales beside this wound. In the next chapter, we uncover the suppressed stories that surfaced in the theft's aftermath. The guards' lapses, the FBI's missteps, the underworld rumours, and the archaeological hunt for truth in a palace frozen in time. Chapter 8. The Night the Frames Spoke. March 19, 1990. Dawn leaks grey over the Fenway. The Dutch room is a crime scene. Yellow tape loops around the empty Rembrandt frame like a noose. FBI Special Agent Thomas McShane steps over glass shards and kneels. A single boot print, size 10, waffle sole, mars the beeswax floor. The silence is louder than any alarm. For the first time in 65 years, the palace speaks in absences. Suppressed stories surface within hours. Security guard Rick Abath, 23, admits he opened the side door at 1:24 a.m. for 2 men in police uniforms. Protocol required a badge check. None was asked. Abath's partner, Randy Millard, was bound in the basement with duct tape wrapped 12 times around his head. Both guards were moonlighting musicians, paid $8.25 an hour. Their personnel files, unearthed by the Boston Globe in 1991, reveal prior reprimands. Abath for smoking marijuana in the courtyard, Millard for falling asleep on shift. The museum had no night supervisor. The alarm panel, a 1985 Westinghouse model, logged motion in the Dutch room at 12:53 a.m. But the signal never reached police. A technician later finds the phone line cut with a diagonal cutter. Archival discoveries follow. The museum's own security logs, subpoenaed in April 1990, show Abath buzzed in an unauthorized visitor, his bandmate, 2 nights earlier. The visitor left at 1:47 a.m. The pattern suggests reconnaissance. The FBI interviews 400 staff and visitors. 38 names are redacted in public files. One redaction hides a trustee's nephew who partied with Abath in 1989. The board suppresses the connection to avoid scandal. Underworld rumours swirl. Boston mobster David Turner, serving time for a 1992 armoured car heist, tells cellmates the Gardner job was inside. In 1997, FBI informant Robert Guarente claims Whitey Bulger's gang hid the paintings in a Connecticut barn. A 1994 raid on a Dorchester warehouse yields a Rembrandt-style frame, but no canvas. The barn burns in 1998. Guarente dies in 2004. Turner is paroled in 2019 and clams up. Archaeological digs begin in the palace itself. In 1991, conservators X-ray the Dutch room walls. Beneath layers of 1903 paint, they find Isabella's original pencil marks. Hang storm here. The empty frame is exactly where she placed it in 1901. The thieves knew the layout. In 1994, ground-penetrating radar scans the courtyard. A void beneath the mosaic, 3 feet by 5 feet, sparks hope. Excavation reveals only a 1903 time capsule, a bottle of 1896 Pol Roger, a Gardner calling card, and a note in Isabella's hand. To the future, drink and remember. No paintings. Recovering erased narratives becomes the mission. In 1992, the museum hires its first archivist, Maureen Melton. She unearths 200 letters in the basement, including one from a 1904 maid describing a secret door behind the Titian tapestry. The door, bricked over in 1953, is reopened in 1995. Inside, a 12 by 8 foot storage room containing Isabella's discarded frames and a 1912 inventory listing 14 works now missing, stolen decades earlier, perhaps by staff. The board quietly returns 3 to descendants. Modern reckonings accelerate. In 2000, the museum installs its first security cameras, 42 Panasonic domes, or $180,000. In 2009, the FBI releases grainy footage of a car circling the museum the night before the theft. The driver, identified in 2015 as Robert Donati, a mob associate murdered in 1991, had visited the museum posing as a journalist. His sister tells 60 Minutes in 2013. He said the paintings were worth more cut than whole. The canvases were sliced with a matte knife, not a box cutter, confirmed by fibre analysis in 2010. The $10 million reward, posted in 2000, generates 1,100 tips. In 2013, the FBI announces the thieves are dead. The art is in Philadelphia. A raid on a South Philly row house yields nothing but pizza boxes. In 2018, Netflix's This Is a Robbery interviews Abath, now a teacher in Vermont. He insists, "I didn't let them in," to steal. Polygraphs are inconclusive. The palace itself yields clues. In 2021, ultraviolet light reveals fingerprints on the empty Manet frame, never dusted in 1999. DNA matches no database. In 2023, a groundskeeper finds a shard of 17th century Dutch glass in the courtyard soil, consistent with the broken frame of the concert. Carbon dating confirms 1680s origin. The shard was missed in 1990 sweeps. Visitor experience shifts. By 2025, 240,000 annual guests passed the empty frames. Audio guides, launched in 2015, include a ghost gallery track. Visitors hold phones to the voids. Augmented reality overlays the missing works. School children leave origami boats in the courtyard fountain, echoing Vermeer's Lost Concert. The museum's Instagram hashtag #DarkEmptyFrames has 1.2 million posts. The suppressed becomes sacred. In 2024, the board commissions a mural in the former coal bunker, portraits of the 1990 guards, the 1903 masons, the 1925 maids. The title, "The Hands That Held the Dream." Isabella's will, once a cage, now frames the absence as art. The frames speak, but the paintings remain mute. In the next chapter, we weigh the legacy, what the voids teach about wealth, memory, and the price of immortality in a city built on mud. Chapter 9. The Echo of Absence. The empty frames do not hang in silence, they accuse. 35 years after the blades descended, the gilded rectangles in the Dutch room and short gallery have become the museum's most famous artworks. Where Rembrandt's storm once churned and Vermeer's musicians once bowed, pale velvet rectangles stare back at 240,000 visitors annually. The voids are not negative space. They are the signature of Fenway Court in the 21st century. What does the mansion represent now? A Gilded Age fever dream, yes, but also a mirror. Isabella Stewart Gardner wanted to freeze beauty in amber. She succeeded too well. The palace stands as a 15th in 200 square foot monument to the contradictions of American wealth: audacity and exclusion, generosity and control, preservation and loss. The swamp that swallowed gravel in 1899 has become a metaphor. Boston's elite once filled the Back Bay with marble. Today the city fills the museum with questions. Lessons emerge in layers. First, the fragility of permanence. Isabella spent $1.5 million, roughly $50 million today, to build an eternal stage. The 1990 theft proved eternity is negotiable. 13 works, valued at $600 million, vanished in 81 minutes because two guards earned $8.25 an hour, and the alarm line was snipped with a $12 in the cutter. The lesson is blunt. No fortress is stronger than its weakest link. Museums worldwide upgraded security post-Gardner. The Louvre installed retractable bollards. The Met added biometric locks. The Gardner itself now spends $1.8 million annually on protection, 12% of its $15 million operating budget. Second, the cost of rigidity. Isabella's will, drafted in 1919, forbade change to preserve the atmosphere. The clause saved the collection from 1930s fire sales but shackled adaptation. The museum could not build a loading dock until 2012, when a $28 million Renzo piano wing, carefully detached from the historic palazzo, finally allowed art to arrive without dodging tourists. The wing's glass facade reflects the old brick, a visual dialogue between past and present. Attendance jumped 18%. The lesson: memory thrives when it breathes. Contradictions abound. Isabella championed women, yet paid her maids $16 a month. She imported Venetian mosaics while Irish masons earned $2.25 a day. The palace celebrated global culture: Chinese bronzes, Spanish cloisters, Japanese screens, yet its staff dormitory barred Jews until 1945. Modern reckonings address the imbalance. In 2022, the museum launched the Gardner Equity Project, $2 million to commission living artists from underrepresented communities. The first acquisition, a video installation by Xaviera Simmons hung beside the empty Manet frame. The juxtaposition is deliberate. Absence makes room for new voices. Ironies sharpen with time. The theft, meant to enrich criminals, enriched the museum's narrative. Pre-1990, The Gardner was a jewel box for cognoscenti. Post-theft, it is a global brand. Empty frames trends yearly on March 18th. The $10 million reward, still unclaimed, has generated 1,800 tips and 3 documentaries. The museum's Instagram following, 185,000. The paradox, loss became the ultimate acquisition. Broader significance crystallizes in the courtyard. The found 200-square-foot mosaic floor, laid in 1901 by Italian hands for $18,000, now hosts yoga classes on summer Thursdays. Visitors, 40% under 35, sit cross-legged where Paderewski once played. The fountain, recirculating 200 gallons of water, drowns out traffic noise. The palace is no longer Isabella's private stage. It is Boston's living room. Annual community days admit 12,000 free visitors. School programs reach 28,000 students. The swamp that once bred mosquitoes now breeds curiosity. The mansion teaches resilience. It survived Isabella's death, the Great Depression, Hurricane Gerda, and the 1990 breach. Each crisis left scars: patched brick, reinforced steel, augmented reality, overlays on empty walls. The building is a palimpsest, layers of ambition, labour, loss, and reinvention. In 2024, the museum installed solar panels on the piano wing roof, generating 18% of its electricity. Isabella, who lit her palace with 1 to 200 incandescent bulbs, would have approved the glow, yet the echo persists. Every empty frame is a question. Where are the paintings? Who profits from silence? The FBI file, 10,000 pages thick, remains open. In 2025, a new lead surfaces. A Dublin antique dealer claims to have seen the concert rolled in a carpet. The tip is the funny 101st. The museum's chief of security, a former Navy SEAL, flies to Ireland. The carpet is empty. The legacy is not resolution, it is reckoning. The Gardner embodies America's uneasy dance with its past, the drive to build bigger, the refusal to forget, the willingness to adapt without erasing. The palace rose from mud on the backs of immigrants, glittered for the elite, nearly crumbled under debt, and now welcomes the world. The empty frames are not failures. They are invitations to look harder, to question harder, to remember that beauty is never owned, only borrowed. In the final chapter, we stand in the Dutch room at closing time, when the last visitor leaves and the frames catch the last light. What do we take with us, and what must we leave behind? Chapter 10. The Palace at Twilight. The Dutch room is empty now. The last visitor, a teenager in a Red Sox cap, has slipped out at 5:40 p.m. The velvet rope drops, the lights dim to a honeyed glow. 13 frames hang like open mouths. 1 Rembrandt storm, 1 Vermeer concert, 1 Manet portrait, 10 more ghosts. The palace exhales. We began in mud and iron, with a widow's silver trowel striking a clamshell. We followed Irish masons who laid 500,000 bricks for $2.25 a day. Italian carvers who signed capitals no one would see. Maids who polished silver until their knuckles bled. We watched Isabella Gardner spend $50 million in today's dollars to build a stage where beauty would never die. We saw death try, strokes, bankruptcy, flood, fire, and finally, in 81 minutes of midnight, the blades that freed $600 million from its frames. The revelations are these: grandeur is built on invisible hands, permanence is a negotiation, absence can speak louder than presence. The Gardner teaches that memory is not possession. The swamp is still there, under the mosaic, under the steel, under the stories. Every orchid in the courtyard, every schoolchild's origami boat, every augmented reality ghost on a phone screen is a refusal to let the swamp win. Stand here at twilight. Feel the hush. The frames do not accuse, they invite. They ask what we will build on our own reclaimed ground, what we will leave for strangers, what we will refuse to sell. Walk out through the side door. The same Dutchman's door the thieves used. The Fenway night is cold. Boston's lights shimmer across the water. The palace behind you is dark but not silent. It breathes. It waits. Visit it. Touch the brick laid in 1901. Sit where Paderewski played. Leave a note in the guest book. Tell the next generation the story of the empty frames. Like this documentary. Share it. Subscribe for the next journey into America's hidden mansions. The palace at twilight is not an ending. It is a question, still unanswered, still glowing.